Welcome to another episode of Off the Record, where we talk about absolutely nothing, but we wind up talking about everything. Welcome. I'm your man, Curtis Jones Jr., Councilman in the 4th District, better known as Mr. 4th District, aka Run Kurt Run. So, welcome. Today's episode is an interesting one. We've been dealing with a lot of things through a equity lens these days. And one of the things that people are looking at is economic parity for black and brown people, for minority businesses. And I have an interesting group of young investors that are involved in economic development. And starting out with Regina Harrison, who is the new president of the African American Chamber of Commerce in Philadelphia. Welcome.
Thank you, Councilman. Thank you for having me today. And also, I just want to be on record as saying I'm a resident of the mighty 4th District.
Hello. See, we grow them. We grow leadership in my district. All right. And then I have joining us by Skype is Terrence Burney, who is with TQ, which is a management group slash investment group. They kind of got started through the wealth that is generated by athletes, investing that, and then decided to get a conscience and do some good things in inner cities to create that wealth. And then I have Jasmina McKeever, who is with Rosebud Investments. I like that. That is, she will explain how she came up with that name, but she's multitasking as we speak, and we're all glad that you could join us today. Let me start by saying that a lot of people are under the misimpression that investment and wealth started with a stimulus check. That a lot of people in our inner city neighborhoods got $3,000 to $5,000, and some of them were up at Lord and Taylor getting expensive bags. In my opinion, that is not an investment. Some of them ran right to the auto dealership and bought that hoopty that they wanted that was worth less the minute it was driven off the lot, or paid their rent, which I think is sensible, but neither one of those things are investments. But other people, a smaller percentage, actually took that money and paid down on real estate, invested in the stock markets and other things to try to make their money make them money, which I think is more inclined. And I wanted to get you guys on there to talk about generational wealth. I'm of the opinion that wealth is either done or created in one's lifetime by your individual effort, or you inherit it. The money that the bootlegging Kennedys that used to, during Prohibition, sell illegal liquor, the money they made then is paying for the trust funds that their great-great-grandkids are living off of now, so they can do what they want instead of what they have to do. With that, let's begin with the discussion. So why don't you tell us a little bit about what's going on in Philadelphia and how black and brown businesses are trying to create wealth?
Sure. So right now in Philadelphia, our black and brown businesses are looking to sustain their wealth because of the pandemic, COVID-19. So we're working with our businesses to make sure that they have relief funding that has been set aside by the government in order for them to sustain their businesses. And also we're working with our businesses to make sure that the ones have pivoted, that they're thriving, so they have access to capital.
So did we have a lot of casualties during COVID of black businesses?
Absolutely. So black businesses, Councilman, they shuttered twice more than their white counterparts.
We were underinsured often and improperly insured in the deep recesses of the contract for insurance. It didn't say pandemic, and it didn't say rioting and looting. So when businesses were interrupted, they just were gone. And underinsured meant that I got just enough money to cover some of my losses, but not all of it. I'm taking that money and run. So, Terrence,
Yes,
tell me
sir.
what's going on in your neck of the woods. How are we creating wealth, and how is it generational?
King, now it's time. It there's optimum opportunity for us to have products and have services and our family's legacy for hundreds of years now if we take advantage of it. I received a phone call from the government 2 days ago that said that they are placing that they only have 1,500 businesses who do business with the government. Vendors, I should say. Only 0.6% of those are minority-owned businesses. They have certain minority-owned businesses out right now that can get $2 to $10 to $15 to $20 million renewable year contracts if they are registered certified minority business. The government does more business does more business than the consumers outside of the government who don't do business with the government. But we don't know about that. It's time that our people know that we can get rich having the government work for us.
Jamisa, give me your
Yes.
perspective and tell me how Rosebud addresses some of that.
Well, I think above all things, wealth is the mindset, and it starts there. So a lot of what goes on in our community, because I'm from Philadelphia myself, we lost before we started. Not only did, like you said, the Kennedys of this generation inherit trust, they also inherited a sense of entitlement, a sense of belonging, right? So before you even can accumulate wealth, you have to one believe that you actually deserve to have it. Now, with
Wow.
Rosebud Investments, I actually teach people that one, you deserve it, and two, it is attainable. So I call it like clearing up the fog. So fog is FOG. One is the family narrative, right? Because community starts within a household. And once we have broken households, that then contributes to broken communities alternatively. O is the ownership, because most of our communities do not own anything, even down to the commercial spaces that they operate businesses out of. They're merely just leasing, so it's still not theirs, which takes away a lot of the control that they would have. And then G, there's a whole nother thing. It pretty much speaks to the growth. But what I do is I simplify the ownership process. So I'm 27 years old right now. I own 25
Say
properties
that
within the
again.
Philadelphia
How old are
area.
you?
I'm 27.
Go ahead.
27.
Go ahead.
I'll be 28 in September, but right now I'm 27. I own 25 properties within the Philadelphia area. We only have one mortgage, and I learned the cheat sheet. Pretty much, it's never what you do; it's always how you do it. So I specialize in taking people from our community to the auction, which is literally right. I think you might be fourth district. I think it's 38 on my market, so that's where
It's 4
the
blocks
auction is.
outside my district.
See, listen, but it's right there, and I take people there because, believe it or not, the opening bid for certain properties is $1,500. So you just kind of spoke on what people received with stimulus and all of that. Well, they have more than enough to invest in properties, but again, because they don't know where to spend their money. It doesn't come with like a manual. They just say, "Hey, here's this money," and because, like I said, we are coming from places of like a lack of abundance. That's why they're spending their money on material like the voids that are originally created
I
in the household
literally,
first.
I literally rode at the end of my district is Lord and Taylor. There was a line out the door around the corner with urban individuals with their boo getting pocketbooks out of there with stimulus checks as opposed to being at that auction. In other communities, in other ethnic groups, what they will do is they create wealth through family-owned businesses. Like they'll live 9 deep in a house and work towards buying a dry cleaners. They'll then put their nephews and work to work and nieces to work. They'll buy a second dry cleaners. When they get to a certain point, they then look to buy a hanger manufacturing company because that's their number one cost factor to reduce that and put one of their own in a business like that. We got to change. You said something, really, really important, Jasmina, about a mindset that we don't have to be consumers, we can be entrepreneurs. Do you find that true in your membership?
I find that true in our membership, but we also need to look towards history, right? So when immigrants come to this country, they coalesce in an area around community. So they go where there are already people that are like them in that community, and they start to learn the trade of those members of that community that came before them. It's like you mentioned the dry cleaners. So they start to learn sewing, and so they started to own the dry cleaners, and it goes from family to family to family. Well, we were doing that, right? So we had Black Wall Street, and then white violence drove those people out of that community where that wealth was concentrated, and it did not succeed down through the generations. So we have the blueprint of doing that. We just have to get back to that mindset that we can accomplish that and do what we've been doing for years and years to come. So generational wealth wasn't something that white people woke up and decided they were going to create. The government was intentional about creating that with the GI Bill, but Black people were locked out of that. They were locked out of the universities. They were locked out of colleges. So it's there. We just need to remember.
There's an interesting book to that point called Roots of Violence in Black Philadelphia, 1860 to 1900. The author's name is Roger Lane. And what he talks about is segregation in South Philly. That's where all of people of color were forced to be. But the unintended good consequence was that because you couldn't go to the 5 and 10 or Woolworths, there was a lady in the basement who sold materials and sewing goods to you and the people in that community. Whether it was haircuts, to beauty salons, to funerals, they were owned by Black entrepreneurs. So to a extent, an unintended consequence of desegregation was diffusing our economic buying power, which nationally is, as a people, is greater than the country of Canada. If all of the wealth, church wealth, individual wealth, business wealth was combined, we have a greater GNP than the nation of Canada. But you can't see that velocity in our community. What do I mean by that? When not you, none of you, because you are woke, as they say, but the average worker living in this neighborhood in West Philly, by the time they get paid on Friday, by Monday night, their money is back out of the community. The synergy of that money is gone. So I might have went down to the corner store. I may have gone and bought some clothes from 52nd Street, but then I'm paying my utilities. Then I'm paying the rent to somebody who lives in the suburbs. At the end of the 72-hour period, 90% of my wealth is gone. It's not going from business to business. In Asian communities, it flips 11 times. In the white community, 7 times. In the African American community, 3 times. Something to think about. Terrence, I want to know if the Black athletes are woke. Are they starting to look at their money not just as disposable income to buy cars, but how is their mindset evolving to create opportunities beyond their playing careers?
It is expanding. Can you hear me?
Yeah, yes.
Yes, it is expanding like wildfire for the ones who are like us and are woke, or the ones who have mentors who show them that NBA check will be depleted if they don't do something with their money that they can invest in, for the future. Let's take, for instance, Al Harrington, with the Viola Company, or Tony Delk. He owns 7 different businesses down. I just got on the phone with him yesterday. He owns 7 different businesses down in Atlanta. My brother Rasheed Wallace, he opened up a store
Philly boy.
the day one.
He's a Philly guy.
Yep, absolutely, absolutely. We ended up we went back to his neighborhood, to his high school, and did some things back there. They're athletes nowadays. On a percentage, black athletes, and this is a statistic that I see. So I don't believe, so don't take it for 100%. But I say about 30% of athletes now are starting to look at business opportunities and ways that they can create income outside of that check.
One athlete I knew personally, was Matthew Saad Muhammad. He was a light heavyweight from Philly. He won all kinds of bouts, amassed a lot of money, did not invest it well. People took advantage of him, and he wound up living in a basement in one of my friend's houses, going from meal to meal, not paycheck to paycheck, but meal to meal. It is incumbent upon organizations like Rosebud and TQ to help them, because just because you know how to sink a basket or box doesn't mean you know how to fight your way through rate of returns and investments. And that's where that community, 50 years ago, it was some slick Willie guy from South Philly that took advantage of them. And now we have options like you guys, to help guide those investments. So what I guess I want to know is, I know some brown and black businesses that have been successful. I mean, they make money. Instead of shooting hoops now, they go play golf. And one of the things that, and y'all can help me with this, they started thinking conservatively. When they open their mouth now, they sound more like Donald Trump than some kinder, gentler entrepreneur that they should be.
Audio sucks.
And literally, what I wondered, do they turn Republican? Are they closet conservatives? How do we stay woke and not stay broke?
So I'll answer that. For the chamber, what we're doing is we are connecting those folks that you're talking about that have seen success with our members that are not, that are starting out. They're starting to mentor them. And I'm actually getting phone calls from them saying, how can I help? I want to mentor a younger entrepreneur. So while they may be conservative, they are still looking to help. And we are connecting them to those folks. And we're amplifying the message for the TQs and the Rosebuds, letting our entrepreneurs and small businesses know what help is out there for them.
So you bring up an interesting point. Technical assistance is key. One thing we found out during COVID when we were attempting to help all of these businesses, that you got to help yourself. Like, you cannot come and tell the lending institution one thing because you've already told the IRS something else. Like, I've had entrepreneurs come up to me, Councilman, Mr. 4th District, I know I made $27,000 last year on my business, wink, wink, but I actually made $200,000. So the lie you told the IRS is the one the bank is going to believe. You got short-term gain from minimizing your tax exposure, but you took a L when it came to net worth of your company and demonstrating that on how you could be bankable. How do we help bridge that technical assistance gap?
So one thing we do is we
Well, I
partner
think-
with organizations.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. I'm going to let you go. But I was going to say one thing we're doing is we're partnering with other organizations to make sure they have technical assistance. So we're an advocacy group, not so much the direct services. So our partnerships are crucial. We partner with the Enterprise Center. We partner with the 76ers on this Buy Black campaign.
Nice.
So for us, it's collaboration and partnerships.
How about you?
Well,
Jasmine?
I feel like just the understanding piece of it, because a lot of the rules were made not with us in mind, so to speak. So they just have to understand wealth as a whole. Like when you're talking about new businesses, maybe one who have made 200,000 for the first time, they are so afraid to lose it, so they're thinking about taxes in a bad way. So they're not looking at the tax benefits, or they're not looking at the breaks. They're more so worried about the tax laws, which just goes to them not understanding. So I am heavy on just educating them on how to use what we already have. Like we don't have to necessarily reinvent the wheel. We just have to understand the functions and the operations of how the wheel works. So just making sure your foundation is solid, making sure that you have credit. I mean, if you have good personal credit, then you can get business credit for any business that you have. And that's whether it is a credit card or a line of credit for that specific business. You can do it that way. And then I also teach about things such as like insurance. Insurance is really, really big. That's one of the ways that a lot of wealthy people grow wealth and also sustain it. But in our community, it's kind of like taboo to have insurance. I'm like speaking of life insurance, actually. I can't tell you how many times I've had to pay towards fundraisers to bury friends and or family members. But what people don't understand is there's actually ways to use insurance and tap into the life benefit. Okay, and those are the only two things that's guaranteed. The moment that you're alive, fact that you'll die. So even investing in insurance policies, that has helped me tremendously. It took my net worth. I think I'm at like a solid 12 million currently, and then I can actually borrow money from myself. You can borrow from your policy, which doesn't even require you to have the logistics of tax returns and all of that other stuff. So it's more so just learning the functionality of economics, how it was built and how it actually works.
So I no longer believe
in it in a way that benefits you.
you're going to have to show me your ID. You cannot be 27. Where you born?
I promise you, I was born in 1993.
Yeah, I'm gonna check your ID. So I'm a segue into a more controversial topic, and one of them is I'm campaigning right, maybe 5 blocks from here, and I'm standing, and it was a corner boy out there, and he was putting in that work on that corner, and so I'm campaigning, I'm knocking on doors, and he pulled me aside and he said, "Why did you let these people buy this store right here and open it up, and they're not from here?" And he gave it to me, and I patiently waited for him to breathe so that I could respond. And I said, "Well, let me ask you a question. How long have you been on this corner?" He looked at me, thought, well, he made sure I wasn't the police. And then he said, "Well, this is my 7th, 8th year that I've been out here." I said, "Do you make money?" He started laughing. He pointed at his pimped out Mercedes, and he showed me his bling on his fingers and rings, and said, "Yeah, I make money. This is my block." And I said, "Okay. So is it over 100,000, 200,000? He said, "Yeah, I guess if I count all my quarters." And I said, "So that store has been vacant for at least 20 years. Did it ever dawn on you to stop what you're doing and invest in the community that you've taken so much from?" And he looked at me like I had 2 heads and spoke in a foreign tongue, because like you said, it's a mindset. I do not have a problem with ex corner boys, as long as you are ex. I do have a problem with folks who do not figure a way out of the game and not put themselves in a position, because if you do 20 years and then you prorate what you earned, you would have paid off better by working at McDonald's. Yeah, that's right. I caught y'all sleeping. Do you have any
It's a level of
response to that?
accountability. Because to be quite honest, the wealth that is being curated right now with this generation of my family, I'm speaking just from my family, came from gentrification. So when I was 19 years old, my grandmom, we did a dollar deed transfer, so to speak. So she put my name on the deed. It was fine. She lived there, so I didn't actually understand what home ownership was because she was still alive. And then when I turned 20 years old, she passed away. Now, I'm from South Philly. I am from 18th and Dickinson. The house that she left me was on 17th Street between Reed and Wharton. I'm in the middle of gentrification. I had no idea what gentrification was, but I was in the middle of it. What ended up happening, long story short, is collectively as a family, we couldn't come together and figure it out. So the property ended up being sold. The property was sold for $152,000. Now, at 20 years old, I've always been really intelligent, so I didn't quite know what to do moving forward, but I did know, okay, if one house got me this much, then I should probably go find more houses. And in my quest of doing that, the realtor who helped me sell the property took it upon himself to introduce me to a financial advisor. And instantly they disqualified me. I'm telling you, like, from the time I walked in the door, they was trying to get the profits from me. Like, hey, you should do a Roth IRA. Hey, you should put your money here, there, everywhere except telling me that I should keep it and what I should really do with it. Nonetheless, I didn't feel comfortable, so I said, no, you know what? I want to buy more property. After that, I ended up meeting an investor, and the investor asked me, what are you trying to do? I said I wanted to buy real estate, and he said, well, how much do you have to spend? So I told him, and naturally, he was curious as to how this little person had that much. So I ended up telling him the story, and he told me right then on the spot that I could have sold that property for $350,000 or more.
Price of knowledge.
Then naturally, yeah, I mean, it happens. But a normal person will feel defeated. They will feel like, okay, this is not for me. I got scammed. Where's the rest of my money? I let that actually fuel me into wanting to learn what I didn't know. And then because of that 1 year, by the end of that 1 year, I reinvested every dollar into property. That 1 year, I got 9 properties. And we didn't know. My husband and I just kind of figured it out. He's just as young as I am. He'll be 29 actually in 2 days. But we
You
still
better
just
get that
figured it
right.
out. So like I know his birthday. So I just say that to say a lot of people they're so used to the victim mentality because that's what we inherited. Like I spoke on what the other people inherited, that sense of entitlement, that superiority. We inherited, unfortunately, the mindset of being a victim, and we're still in slavery. Like back then, slaves were only able to remain enslaved because mentally they were feeling like they were weak. But they didn't never think about the fact that they were strong enough to obviously mine crops. They were strong enough to build houses. They were strong enough to, like, even the women, they were like bearing children. They were raising children that weren't theirs. So we were always stronger than they wanted us to know we were, so that they can get over on us the way that they do. And what I see in the community now is a lot of people, they pull a victim card. I didn't know. Nobody taught me about credit. Nobody taught me about houses. I'm firsthand saying nobody had that conversation with us either. However, we did take the luxury to figure it out. Because once they made a book and then they made it public knowledge, we then have the opportunity to tap into those said resources and just learn and understand what it was. That's why the G is so important. That's like the group economics part of my FOG analogy. But it's like, if you know better, you do better. Collectively, like you can buy the neighborhood that you live in. Like you said, the guy with the Mercedes. Why? Why would you buy a Mercedes if you are still in the same place for 8 years? That don't make sense. Like where you
Living in
driving
his
it to?
mama's basement.
But here's my thing: you driving the Mercedes to the same block every day. That just makes no sense to me. So I think a lot of people just need to realize that you are responsible for your future. You can't blame what a person didn't teach you or didn't give to you on what you don't have, because you have a day at a time to learn and change the narrative. And I say all the time, we don't pass the baton. We just kind of run the same race over and over and over. So that's why I'm big on like collectively learning and collaborating with different companies to teach
So,
them and to
so
spread the message.
I'm of the opinion that the first classroom is the family dinner table. All right?
Yep.
What do you tell your child about generational wealth? I'm asking each and every one of you as we close, what would you tell the listening audience, the ABCs of investment and generational wealth? I'm going to start with you.
I was about to say we have 4 children actually. A 2-year-old. Oh, well, she's 3 now. Sorry, 3, 4, and our baby will be 7. So if you're saying ABCs, I would say in order that A would be access, the B would be building, and the C I would just say make it count. So first of all, you have to let them know that access is power. You have to let them know that they can have these things, that it is there for you. You have to change the way that they look at stuff so that the stuff that they're looking at will change. So if you're raising your child in an environment that's not quite to your liking, don't have them look at it in a way of like, oh, I'm in a poverty stricken neighborhood. Teach them to look for opportunity. Wealth comes with opportunity. Be with building. It's not about what you don't have. It's about creating what you want. And you can do that from wherever you are. So it doesn't matter if you're in a more upper echelon neighborhood or if you are from where we're from. And then the C, I would say like every day, keep going, because some people get to a certain level of wealth or a certain level of whatever they call it, and they'll stop. But it's not about you. It's about freeing the people that's after you too. So it's not enough to say I'm Jamisa and I own XYZ. I won't stop until the people that I know can say the same thing. So that is the conversation that we do have with our little children, but they're small. But if you continuously put it into them, they'll grow up and they'll understand.
Terrence, what would you tell
Yes, sir.
your children about generational wealth?
Well, first off, I want to say both of the comments that the ladies said are definitely great. Collaboration and knowledge is key. I believe it is important for our people to even know the power of having a Dunn's number. I guess about 80% of the people I talk to, they don't even know what a Dunn's number even is. So, but if I'm sitting at the table and I'm telling my children, my future children, about generational wealth, it would have to be three things. One, pray for your purpose. Because when you know your purpose, what you're here for, all doors will open up for you. Two, be passionate about it. Because when you're passionate about it, when you're doing something that you will wake up to do every day in your life for free, it would open up doors for you. And three, give. No man or woman becomes rich unless he or she enriches others. If you haven't received the things in your life that you know you deserve, it's probably because you haven't given the things you know you owe. In order to receive more, one must give more. And once you receive more, make sure you invest it. I see greatness in you.
There you go. Bring it home, Regina.
Absolutely. So at my dinner table, it's about access to information, making sure that they know what's possible and making sure that they have the information. It's about connectedness, connecting them to resources, finding what they're great at and helping them achieve that. And it's about demonstration, showing them at home what it is to have generational wealth and to see it passed down. So it's a wealth plan. It's about showing them through my actions. So do we have the deed in our name, or do we have a will to pass it on to our children? And did we discuss that? We have conversations about this every day. It is not taboo to talk about death in my household. They need to know where the insurance policies are. They need to know where the will is, and they need to know that they're taken care of.
And ultimately, join the African American Chamber of Commerce so you can network to improve your net worth.
Absolutely.
All this and more on Off the Record. Thank you all for coming on and talking about the subject of generational wealth. I'm your man, 50 Grand, Mr. 4th District. Run, Kurt, run.